It's just like little white ants crawling around inside a festering rubbish bin. An organism, this rice, you know, this is the exemplary organism, and the spirit of the organism is also very, very strong. As the label explains, this is a 3-day installation performance in a didactic environment influenced by Shinto animism. So we have there's a Japanese precedent. When a Belgian book called The Memory of Water was published in Japan, it resonated very much with the Japanese sensibility, the Shinto sensibility of many Japanese people. To this day, they believe that things have a spirit. They're basically animists. They're Buddhists, but they have a strong tradition of Shinto. And so people in Japan did an experiment, a rice experiment, in which they took 2 bowls of rice and spoke for a period of maybe a week nicely to one of the bowls, saying arigato, gohan, thank you, rice. And to the other, they said things like mukatsuku, which is you piss me off, you know, we hate you, you're white trash. So that's why the experiment is called White Trash here. We have White Trash, the restaurant, just next door. The kitchens are on the ground floor. And we are speaking nicely to one bowl of rice and nastily to another. And we expect, the hypothesis of the experiment is that after 3 days continuous insulting and praising, we'll find that one of these rice pots is moldy. This is what they found in Japan, that the mold was considerably darker and more intense on the rice which had been abused. So it's really about vicious circles and virtuous circles, that hype or praise or nice treatment actually improves the quality of something, even if it doesn't speak the language you're speaking. We don't know what rice speaks, what language it speaks, and whether it understands our words, but it certainly understands our feelings towards it. And our feelings towards this are going to be overwhelmingly positive, and towards this, really very negative. This is white trash, and earlier we were stabbing a knife into it, but I think that was perhaps a little excessive. All we need to do is simply hate this rice. This is my nephew, Robert, from Scotland, who's helping me with the experiment. And we're not just praising the rice, we're praising people as they come into this space and trying to improve the quality of their souls by telling them just how wonderful they are. So, of course, this relates to hype in the art world and to circles of adding value to artworks, because, of course, criticism has boiled down to in many cases, a kind of hype process where you add value in a financial sense to work which itself doesn't have any inherent value. Just the cost of the materials, and then, of course, the words are what create the value. So this is also part of our experiment. This is a subspecies, a kind of degenerate. On Sunday at 5 o'clock we will have a question and answer session followed by a sake party. Sake, of course, is the fermented alcoholic spirit of rice, and the spirit of this rice will be slightly fermented in itself. So sake is the appropriate drink, and I will announce, just by examining the state of the rice, which rice has more mold, which seems to be in a better condition. I've been in Berlin for 5 years, and Berlin itself is a nice example of how hype and praise can become a self-fulfilling prophecy and a virtuous circle. Berlin, I think, has become the city it was advertised as perhaps a few years ago, simply because people believed the lies. My activity, basically, I'm a writer, a journalist, and a musician, a pop musician. I've been making albums for 20 years, but yeah, my motto as a performance artist is every lie creates a parallel world, the world in which it is true. So I really believe that by creating an alternative reality, you can actually push the real world towards that parallel world. There's a parallel world in which this rice is in excellent condition after 3 days, and a parallel world in which this is not. So we're going to try and create that parallel world.
Yeah, I have two books coming out in 2009. One is a novel called The Book of Jokes, which looks at the life of a family in which everything that happens to that family is simply a joke you've heard before, usually a very bad and dirty joke. The other book is called The Book of Scotlands, and it's 1,000 parallel world Scotlands, because we have a possible independence process in Scotland, eventually leading to Scotland becoming a kind of Scandinavian country in a so-called arc of prosperity, which is no longer an arc of prosperity between Iceland and Norway, because of course Iceland and all these countries have rather melted down recently. But we don't know if Scotland will become independent or not at this point, but there's a certain political dialogue about what it might mean to be independent, but there isn't enough delirium, there isn't enough poetic imagination of what a independent Scotland would be like. So that's really what I'm doing, imagining absurd Scotlands. So that's published in the spring by Sternberg. I write daily a blog, which is really just an index of the things which excite me culturally, a little bit like VernissageTV. I just cover cultural stuff, a lot of Japanese stuff. This week, a Japanese theatre director, for instance. Yeah.
This is the rice which fell on the sterile fallow ground. This is the rice which has been cultivated in the